Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough. We have completed the first run of side quests in the first hub area, which is always a feeling of relief for me when I play this game because, I like exploring these areas, but the side quests are just a bit too far down the side of bland to give me the same kind of feelings I get from, like, a Yakuza game or even an Elder Scrolls
Correction,
game.
Lewis. It is the 7th area, not the first area. God, can you not read?
So, I know that this is a thing in a lot of anime and video games, but goddamn, everybody in this town is wearing normal-ass clothes. And you've just got Cloud here looking like he's at an anime convention.
He's from Soldier.
I mean, I brought that up on the train from the bombing mission where someone posted just a screenshot of that and just said, "You and your mates going to the anime convention during rush hour."
It's always it's particularly the train picture and the one in the elevator.
I mean,
Yeah.
you say that, but he's just wearing baggy pants and a sleeveless sweater. The most out there thing about his outfit is the shoulder armor. And maybe
and
the gloves.
gloves
gauntlet.
and the gauntlets
gauntlet, yeah, on
and
his left
the giant-ass sword.
That's not clothes, Ted, okay?
And the... he's wearing it.
He's not the only person in this world who uses a goddamn sword. He just happens
he's
to be the only one
person
on the
in this
city
world
block.
who uses a sword bigger than he is.
No, there's another guy. His name is Zach.
I don't understand though why he only has one arm guard.
People always bring this up whenever we complain about this. It's something about mobility or whatever.
Well, no, the one arm guard doesn't make any sense. The one shoulder makes some sense depending on what.
Yeah,
kind
the
of
one
sword fighting
shoulder
you're-
guard makes sense to me because there are sword stances that accommodate for that. But the one arm guard, I don't.
Presumably, it's like a buckler, because that's his offhand, but I don't know.
The buckler's a belt, isn't it?
I know that if you're using a
The
bow,
buckler's a shield. Buckler's a
if
shield.
you're using a bow and arrow, I know you have a thingy on only one of the arms because only one of the arms can get hit by the pullback of the drawstring. But Cloud doesn't use a bow. Maybe there's something like that for a sword.
I mean, the obvious answer is just aesthetical choice.
Given that
honestly, but
the
it's like,
function
you know.
of the bangles in this world is a bit like unclear. Like all of the armor that anyone ever equips is just armlets, but they all.
The real reason is if you tell Tetsuya Nomura to make somebody symmetrical, he starts to sweat really, really profusely. Hey, Tifa, we're alone.
Okay. I was feeling really uncomfortable with the first-person perspective until it smash cut to Cloud and zoomed out from his face. All like, what?
The arm gauntlet stays on during sex.
I mean, this is technically an optional scene you get for doing.
Oh
all those
yes,
side missions.
this is there's in both of the first two hub areas with Tifa and Aerith. There's an optional cutscene at the end of it if you do all of the side quests in that area. So. A little bit more direct, immediate feedback to let you know that you've gained an affection with the character is always nice. They don't do anything at all like that for Barrett, though, even though he's one of the characters you can gain points with. So, yeah, just another reason why he's the harder
Hey, Cloud,
one.
you sure you remember that right?
I'm sorry.
In any case, I love this scene, to be honest. This scene is great. It's great because we never really got to see much of Cloud's friendship with Tifa in the original game. So, having that added context and texture with the characters' relationship with each other really actually goes a long way toward explaining why both characters behave toward the other as they do, which, as anyone who's played the original game far enough in to know the twists, can tell you is kind of fucking important.
Not that there wasn't in the original game, but that all centered on whether you had Tifa in your party at all times.
Yeah.
Which was very possible that you didn't.
Like,
You know?
I can see people leaving Tifa out, because she does have her strengths, but one of them is the slot machine limit break that is only good if you're good at using it.
What's your choice?
Oh,
What's
God.
Your choice?
They really...
This is actually important for later, because when you get to the wall market sequence, there are multiple outfits that Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith can all end up wearing for that part of the game. This question decides what Tifa wears at that point, because she's obviously not with you, so they can't do anything in that immediate part of the game to help you decide. So, yeah, when she asks what you think would be better for her to wear when she's out on the town and all dressed up, well, obviously at some point she made a purchasing decision based on that, so she has a different dress at that point in the game.
Isn't always right, you know.
For some reason, when I saw something sporty, I thought her date outfit was just going to be a regular street clothes.
Or she takes it the wrong way and shows up in like a sports jersey and shorts and stuff.
What, you don't like Tom Brady?
Yeah, she's a fan of the Xanax Grenades.
Ugh. No one, yeah, they're a good team, but no one likes their star player. He's such a douchebag.
The star player is the only one that gets us high enough up there. He's the Tom Brady of the team.
Wait, aren't the Xander Canades terrible, though?
No, Xanax Games are great.
I don't
No, but
It's Waka's.
Yeah,
team,
the
Oh.
Besaid Aurochs.
That's the Besaid Aurochs. Yeah.
Like right away, you can hear the name of that team and think, okay, this is a speedy, agile, underwater soccer game sport. Why the hell would you name your team the Aurochs?
Yeah, it's more like my first question. What the hell is an Auroch?
well, I mean, they're the Xanarkin Abes, right? That's their name?
Yeah.
So they're
Yes.
what? They're just a bunch of Lincolns walking around. They all have giant top hats and really scraggly beards.
Their fight song is just a melodic version of the Gettysburg Address.
Now that I think about it, what is an Abe? I mean, it sounds audibly to my ears when I hear the word. It sounds more fitting to the nature of the blitzball sport than Aurochs does, but that's mainly because just the sound of the word is a lot snappier, whereas Aurochs put me in the mind of a lumbering bull.
So for the longest time, I thought it was Xanarkin Apes, and now I'm just imagining a team of Donkey Kongs playing blitzball. Which, you know what? They probably would be all right at that, considering that Donkey Kong can... Although he'd probably use a boxing glove for his bat, so I don't know.
a little something to take the edge off, right? How about
All right, and now we get to see Tifa actually doing the bartending thing. There was a short scene of this in the original game, but because the camera was so pulled back and the graphics so limited, the only thing it could really do for you is give you a dialogue choice as to whether or not to accept a drink from her, and you would get a positive response if you did. And she would act kind of vaguely insulted if you didn't, and that was the extent of it. Another one of the...
It's kind of like on opposite extremes of the choices, too. It's either like, I'll pass or give me something hard.
Yeah.
And they kept the Suba trapdoor. So
All right,
great.
biggest disappointment of the game.
You don't
We
go in
never go down the heck.
Never actually get to go and see what it looks like. Yeah.
I want it 3D pinball machine.
I want to
remake.
be able to play the pinball machine.
I'm pretty sure you could, but it's like, imagine the poor sap that actually got a high score. Just suddenly find himself being teleported to the depths of hell as far as that guy knows.
You're playing pinball machine for 30 minutes. You've got the highest score you could ever possibly achieve. You're just about to be number one on the rankings, and then suddenly you get shot into the air as somebody jumps up from underneath you. You get a concussion. Game
If
over.
this were Kamurocho instead of... Oh, I like how the code to get in is actually just all sevens, though. If this were a Yakuza game, if this were Kamurocho, we actually would be able to play the pinball machine, though. There is a pinball machine in your office in Judgment, and you can play pinball just whenever the hell you want. There's no purpose for it, but you can, and it works. It's very
I mean,
functional.
isn't that like half of Yakuza games? It's all just there just to be there.
I don't know. Something hard and bitter.
Stop trying to show off, Cloud. You know you're a lightweight.
Oh yeah, I'll have a whiskey on the rocks, shaken, not stirred. Oh, it's Tifa, soldier, Zach.
I'm gonna have a scotch on the rocks. Hold the scotch.
So you want rocks?
This dialogue interplay between the two of them here is fucking amazing.
I love it. I love all of this. Like all of this added detail to the little exchanges. I am all for. Please just give me more of this for the next game.
Well, yeah. In the original game, I mean, the characters had varying degrees of really fun personalities, but because the pacing of a traditional Final Fantasy game, pre-Final Fantasy XII anyway, is so quick-fire, you don't get a lot of scenes where the directors and the writers take time to just have the characters talk with each other. Things always have to be moving the plot forward, or moving the current situation forward at the very least.
So I didn't really get necessarily that inflection from the original game. Granted, it's been 5 years since I played it. The thing about it for me was always just that the translation was really
That
stilted.
too. Yes.
So
Um,
you didn't. The characters came off a little rough around the edges just because the writing didn't always feel right. And that, of course, comes just from a modern sensibility, you know? Especially.
7 is coming off of the Ted Woosley era of
Yeah.
you Spoony Bart and all that.
I
so.
mean, SNES RPGs, even the Ted Woolsey ones, do have a slight bit of that stiltedness to them, but it's just I felt like some of the PS1 games, where they didn't take as many liberties with it as Ted Woolsey did, feel even more stilted.
the thing about Final Fantasy VII's translation is that a lot of the dialogue, especially later on in the game, is actually grammatically kind of busted. There's actually a surprising number of lines of dialogue later on in the game that actually don't make sense when you think about them. So it can be a bit of a brain twister to try and get your head around what's going on with the characters and with the plot at times. But
So you can play darts, but not the pinball machine.
yeah,
Yes. And you get a materia for beating Wedge's high score.
yeah. You can just keep trying this for free until you get it. And it's...
I mean, nobody's here, Cloud. You could just stick 3 darts into the middle. No one would be able to tell you otherwise.
If anyone calls you out on whether or not you actually did it, you just say, I'm a soldier first class. What do you expect? Wedge would buy it.
This is another thing that puts me in the mind of a Yakuza game, because darts at the pub is a staple of Kamurocho nightlife. Damn it. So close. Fortunately, this game is much, much better. This is me just starting over, because I screwed up my first throw at the dart game. But, In most of the Yakuza games before Yakuza 6, the darts minigame was frickin' awful. So, I'm glad that they at least did a good one here.
So it took them 7 games in order to get the darts game to be good.
Dart
And they
physics
kept
just
on
right.
going that far.
I don't know if they had darts in the earlier Yakuza games. I think they were introduced later. The minigames in the Yakuza series are generally quite good, but there's usually at least one stinker. And for me, when it came to the games from Yakuza 0 on earlier, whenever the darts showed up, it was usually the darts that were the stinker. And if you wanted a good minigame, you would probably head over to the bowling alley. Stop missing your throws, Cloud. God
Okay,
damn it.
so...
Okay, so that's why this part's 28 minutes long.
So I was going to say, so we're not letting Lewis record any Yakuza playthroughs for the channel, right?
Yeah, because we'll never get past the fucking minigames.
Well, we might spend a lot of time at the Hostess Club, but I've been streaming Yakuza on my Twitch channel, and we haven't spent that much time in the minigame. Like maybe 20 collective minutes trying to figure out how bowling and billiards work.
Please, God,
But
end it.
that's collective across
Hey.
several sessions, so 10 minutes or so at a time. And then...
Yakuza always, to me, felt like Xenoblade in terms of the sort of game that just wouldn't work for our style of Let's Play, because it's just the kind of thing where there's so much extra content. If you went for it, like if you tried to do all of it, then... And I'm talking about in terms of... Oh my god, really? They're gonna Matrix bullet time the... Okay.
Only if you happen to get a perfect shot on the glowy space that tells you you've got this is where you need to throw the dart to get the exact score you need to
Take that, Wedge.
yeah. In any case, to get the high score, you just need to hit 0 in fewer darts than is on the little leaderboard there. And you've got a little bit of leeway there. I got 6, his high score was 8, and you could probably do that better than I did.
Ted, I would say it's all a matter of how you edit that content and who's carrying that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just the kind of thing where when it's doing it post commentary, there's too much to show.
Well, I mean,
For if you want to show everything, and if you don't show everything, then A, you're sort of missing the point, and B, you're also making it much, much, much shorter.
I mean, the game that I've been streaming, though, is Yakuza Kiwami, and over 2 or 3 sessions, the only thing that's taken up a lot of time on its own is the goddamn Majima Everywhere system, which they went, like, very blatantly overboard on. Oh, look, they're sitting one stool apart. There's distance between them. It's symbolic.
Because Sephiroth has already claimed the middle seat. They're just being respectful.
Sarah just walks in. Here I am, going to sit between my two best buddies.
Tifa, something hard, please.
Don't do it.
You know the middle school dance? You just see Cloud and Tifa dancing with their arms really stretched out, and then Sephiroth like comes in and goes zoop right between the two of them.
Hey, best friends, remember that time we went to that Nibelheim Manor years ago? Good times.
This was one of the scenes that they showed off in the trailer where Tifa talks about how her feelings about the stuff that they've been the stuff that's been going on with Avalanche is starting to get a little conflicted after the bombing.
You want another drink?
Was
Yeah, this is something new for the remake.
Yeah, I was going to
'cause,
ask. I don't remember Tifa ever having any problems with what they ever did.
Well, no, she never did, because they just barreled straight on into the second bombing mission, and the only thing you ever got from her, the only change in her demeanor that you ever got a sense for, was that last time she didn't insist on going along, this time she did, and it's entirely your fault, asshole.
I think in the original game, it's always been implied that the reason why she was so gung ho about it was a way of keeping an eye on Cloud.
But we never got a sense for how she felt about Avalanche's
Personally,
specific
yeah.
activities. All we really found out about her motivations, as far as that goes, is that she does hate Shinra, and she does really want to get revenge on Shinra because she blames them for what happened with Sephiroth and Nibelheim and her father. But obviously, we didn't get far enough in the game in this one part of the remake series to really see much of that. So they focus on something else instead, and in my opinion, it's for the better.
It's fine.
Oh, you know what? I just noticed a little whisper shadow
Let's talk more
near the end of
after
that cutscene. I didn't notice it the first time. Interesting.
Really, it's fine.
I do like.
Come on, Cloud, you gotta go on the bombing mission.
One thing that I definitely like, though, is, like, okay, you're told to, get the hell out because it's a private party and all, and you're not technically part of Avalanche anymore. But you can just stand around here for, like, 5 straight minutes, and these guys
Yeah,
keep
they talk for a
talking.
while.
Yes.
They talk for a while.
None of them ever notices that you're still just standing there listening to them either.
Now we're gonna listen to this entire conversation while Lewis goes back to the darts.
It's really charming. I like the interplay between the Avalanche characters. It really does give them a lot more texture, a lot more. Well, not to put too fine a point on it, not a lot more to care about. That and the following mission that we're about to go on together make it feel like a lot more of a wrench when the shit hits the fan, as it did in the original game. And, well, yeah.
See, Lewis is going through the same crisis that I did. It was like, I want to leave, but
they
they're
won't
still
shut
talking.
up.
And I gotta listen to what they're saying because I could be missing a little tidbit.
It's all just.
Is that a bad thing though? Like, not.
But it's like, there's a point where I become aware I've been doing nothing but standing for 5 minutes. It's like just listening to these guys.
Cloud
talk.
is standing by the door, just awkwardly hovering there, like he wants to. He wants to join in the fun,
Forgot how doorknobs work.
but he
So it's that awkward time at a party where you want to say goodbye to people so you can head out, but they're busy talking to other people, so you can't get a word in.
You don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
They're also not looking at each other while they're talking. Like Jesse's just staring at the wall when she's talking to Barrett.
The drinks were already kicking in.
Anyway, as they're having their fun in there, it turns out that there's some ne'er-do-wells hovering out here trying to find out about the man with the gun arm. Which is something...
After all, there's so many of them wandering around these
Well,
days.
this is something that we found out about post hoc in the original game, where Don Corneo was sending his ruffians, his mooks, his cronies, to go and investigate and find out where Avalanche was based for Shinra. So, it's interesting that they put it here, though, and had Cloud encounter them first.
This is also what they first played Lurking in the Darkness from the original game, and oh my god. Like, every time they just play a track from the original game. Like, the remix is so fucking stellar.
Wouldn't that be most of the time though?
Weird.
Like,
No, because there are a lot of original tracks in this game
Yeah,
as well.
The thing about the original soundtrack from the original game is that a lot of the music tracks in the original game are specifically composed for characters and situations you don't meet in part one. So using them here
Yeah.
would be weird. But they can't just use the 5 or 6 tracks that were composed for the Midgar section and nothing else either. So they fill in the soundtrack of this game with a lot of new tracks as well.
Yeah.
Did they get Umatsu to do the new tracks or no?
No.
No.
He
okay.
did. He worked on the vocal theme for the credits, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Well, he had to have been no, because I think he was involved to some capacity. Obviously, not to the extent of the.
Well, I
original
mean,
seven.
I assume they ran all the remixes and stuff by him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would need to, I think.
That
But no, most of it is. God damn, I've been blanking on names. Same person who did 10 and 13. And there's two people that I'm blanking on.
Man, look at you, man. I've got this giant sword that's bigger than you are, and you're coming at me with a pocket knife. Okay, sure. You think you've got my number?
No, apparently we have their numbers. They're 70 and 74 to the most part, I think.
And now, because I'm just so dead set on scanning everyone, I have to take a few seconds at the beginning of every battle to use the assess skill.
Yeah, the composers was Masashi Hamazu, who was involved in 10
Oh,
and
yes.
13 and a couple of other things. Mitsudo Suzuki, who doesn't have a clickable bio for some reason. And Nobuo Uematsu. Nobuo Uematsu was involved.
There was an RPG I played on the 3DS. Oh god, I forget its name. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. It wasn't very good. But one of the big things they sold on it, like in the marketing or whatever, is the music composed by Nobuo Uematsu. He did one track for the game. Exactly one song for the game.
Yeah, I
and they
mean-
gave him top billing.
If it's a selling point, it's a selling point.
Yeah. I mean, the thing
That's
is that
basically
the track that he did was just the standard battle theme, which was it wasn't great. And the other
know what-
music in that game was actually pretty good. Like the stuff
You know what's
that he
funny?
didn't do.
It's not to the extreme of just one track, but before Lewis even thought about doing the sponsored content for 14, I was considering it on the sole premise that Nobuo Uematsu was returning to compose most of the music,
Yes.
which he hasn't done since 9.
And the music in Final Fantasy XIV, generally speaking, is really good. So,
Yeah. Although I do not want to commit the sin of throwing Masayoshi Soken under the bus because he is also a phenomenal composer.
oh yes.
Yeah, that happens a lot of the time when you get, those sorts of pairs of composers who work on things. Because that's, I think, the case with a couple of the PS2 Final Fantasies as well, as Nobuo Uematsu and another composer did the work on the game, and then everybody's like, oh, Uematsu, and it's like, this other person also did lots of great work on that soundtrack, but then nobody mentions the other great
Yeah,
songs.
the thing is, unless you actually look up the list of music tracks and who composed what, you'll never know which of the two composers composed which tracks. It could be that the big name famous one composed like maybe a third or a quarter of the tracks, and most of it was the new guy.
I remember having that sort of problem with the Genesis version of Sonic 3D Blast because I love that soundtrack.
Which one?
But the Genesis soundtrack. Well, I like both. Both have their strong their hits and misses, but the Genesis version I think is just vastly superior. But that was composed by both Jun Sano and God damn it. But that's my point exactly. It's incorrect to say that Jun Sano composed the entire thing when he had this other dude help. God damn, what is his name? I don't want to Google search it for cowards.
Michael Jackson.
But
Anyway, because we're starting this story and hovering for so long in the Midgar section, they actually had to introduce summoning materia way earlier in Final Fantasy VII Remake than they did in the original game.
You don't get it until, you get to Red 13's house.
The earliest summoning materia you could get in the original Final Fantasy VII was the Chocomog materia, which was entirely optional, and you can find it at the Chocobo farm outside of Midgar after the Calm flashback. Actually, you might be able to go to it before the calm flashback, but I don't think you'd be able to.
Yeah, you can. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, but why would
Yeah,
you?
you'd have to go kind
building
of
over there
out of
to the
your
left.
way to do that. It's
You
okay
like
though
Home's
because
Club?
in the original Final Fantasy VII, the summoning materia just sort of existed without much context to it, and that continued to be the case all the way through the complication of Final Fantasy VII until like the summoning materia was treated as if it was a big deal. Everyone knows what it is, but nobody actually talks about what it is or where it comes from. So it's a bit weird.
Well, I mean, it's just
I
magic.
think weird to us, but to them it's just the norm.
Well, yeah,
It's a Pokeball.
It's just interesting, given the place that Final Fantasy VII occupies in the overall franchise, because they were
Oh my
starting to ascribe significance to the summons as early as Final Fantasy IV, but Seven just goes back on that and doesn't
Yeah.
really address it at all.
Can I just say that I think Giga Brain Chocobo gets too much shit. I like Giga Brain Chocobo.
Yeah, I don't like the carbuncle. It looks weird.
Well, the Carbuncle, I don't know about the Carbuncle, but the Giga Brain Chocobo is always. I'm
It's interesting that they introduced Carbuncle into this remake, since Carbuncle was one of the classic summons that wasn't in Seven.
No, I think it wasn't
Well,
until 8 that I got the 3D treatment.
Yeah, 8 was the first 3D Carbuncle. Yeah. Although the first interesting Carbuncle was 9. I don't say useful, I just say interesting, because Carbuncle...
Hey, Carbuncle in 6, I think, was just a shell.
Yeah.
I think a
Or it might
lot
be
of
Reflect, I'm
the
not
summons
sure.
aren't very good, to be fair, because they're all super high on MP, and a lot of them are just not worth it when you could do normal magic for the same damage.
It's more that they tend to be limited use. This was true in 6 as well. In
Yeah.
6, like, you could summon every summon once per battle, I think. In 7, they started out once per battle, but as you leveled up their materia, you would get a few more uses out of them.
In 9, you can just use them whenever the hell you
In
want.
7, their real use was actually the stat rebalance that you got for equipping them, because they were the materia with the strongest debuff to strength in exchange for the strongest buff to spellcasting. So if you wanted a particular character to specialize in magic use, you would dump a bunch of summon materia on them to buff their stats.
Yeah, I think the lowest with summoning material was like 5%, with the highest being 10, I would
Yeah.
say.
I think that there is a good reason, though, why they didn't want to have the summon materias be multi-use in Final Fantasy VII, or at least you have to work for them, because the animations took so long. Like, people... It's already a joke at how long the battles take in that game, but if you could just use Ifrit, like, every turn, you would
I
absolutely
mean, you
win.
can use Knights of the Round every turn.
Which is probably the only reason why the summoning animations were cut in half for 8 and 9, or at least gave you the option to skip them.
Well, 8 didn't give you the option to skip them. 8 gave you something to do while the animation was playing out.
Oh, that's right. The
Yeah.
boost, that's right.
9 did give you the shorter summon animations, but the shorter summon animations, when they triggered, also involved less damage. So you actually wanted
Yeah.
the longer summon animation to play.
Fuck you,
as,
Square.
as often as you could.
I got shit to do.
I don't have time to sit through 2 minutes of arc every single time I want to.
You don't need to use Arc. What are you doing? No, you get the ability that adds damage to Odin, and then you just use Odin all the time. Okay, that's all you gotta
It's
do.
interesting
Excuse me.
that the...
I don't hear any of these auto regen strats in this conversation.
It's interesting that the game series that is emphasizing fast-paced RPG gameplay often has the stuff that makes the battles take longer.
Well,
It's weird.
Yeah, Sephiroth.
in 9's case, it was
Get outta here
a
with that
willing
super
trade-off, because sometimes you wouldn't even have a summoner in your party at all. So
Well,
it depended
in
on
Final
what you
Fantasy
wanted.
IX, you also have to wait 30 whole seconds to even do anything when a
Oh
battle
yeah,
starts.
that was because they were really pushing the hardware at that point, and the load times were getting obnoxious.
Maybe if I played the remastered version, I would like that game more, because I know that problem is slightly fixed.
The
in that
remastered
but when I
version
tried to
does fix it quite a bit, but I'm not a fan of the UI.
Yeah, because when I tried it on the PS1 version, I could not play Final Fantasy IX because it took so long for anything to happen.
It is the worst part.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to put up with it, but I also played it, like, literally right when it came out, so at the time it was technologically impressive enough that it bypassed my youthful impatience, you know? So,
Yeah.
in any case, we will talk more about this and many other things that are not the Final Fantasy VII Remake next time in Part 7 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough. We will see you all then.